Hello, LinkedIn. Good afternoon. I always am wary about saying good afternoon because I know there are people tuning in from different places. It's afternoon here in Dublin. I'll be going live for about 5 minutes today. I think discussing the latest episode number 83 of the Happier at Work podcast. If you haven't checked out the full episode, there is a link below to check out the full episode. And I'd really love to know your thoughts. It is my fourth time doing a solo episode. It's getting a little bit easier, I have to say, but it's still definitely stretching my comfort zone. And I'd love to know what you think of the solo format of the episodes. I certainly didn't think I'd be able to talk for 35 minutes about various different topics. I've looked at imposter syndrome, happiness at work, boundaries, and then this most recent one all about hybrid and remote working and sharing what I'm seeing out there in the market at the moment and what's actually going on. If you're listening live, I would love to know. Please comment and I'll see it popping up for me on the software that I'm using to stream live over onto LinkedIn. And I suppose the key thing to say here to preface, and I did say it on the podcast as well, is there's no one size fits all. And I think what's going on out there is there's a lot of organizations that are looking to each other and looking to other organizations to learn from them and see what's going on. But really what you should be doing is looking internally to see what would work best for you as an organization, because maybe it's not the same approach that would work elsewhere. So that is one thing to bear in mind. And I think being able to empower your teams to have those discussions, whether that's at a manager level, whether that is at a senior leader level. I know the podcast came at an unusual time in that I had already recorded it and released it. And now in Ireland, the latest is that everyone is being encouraged to work remotely, work from home again, where possible, because of the numbers that we're seeing with the pandemic at the moment. What else did I want to say? Yes, the other thing I wanted to say is taking an agile and iterative approach. So trying something out, testing it, seeing what works, getting feedback from your team as to what is actually working specifically for you, what's working, what's not working, and making tweaks as you go along. So if there's something that's not working, can you tweak it slightly to make it better, and then revisit it and ask questions again and continually test it and see what's working. I think for me, the important thing to have is some structure around it. So to keep things the same. I know, there's a lot of issues around boundaries at work, especially when we're working from home, that work is creeping into, or, some people call it sleeping at work and things like that. So creating a bit more structure around your day, around which days you're going to be, which hours and which days you're going to be working, but bringing the focus very much back to this idea of outcomes, so that we're not working, clocking in and clocking out just for the sake of it, that we're working and building towards achieving some very specific outcomes for the business that we're working in as well. What I'm seeing as well out there is a demand for individuals to come back to the office, because some of the senior leaders don't necessarily trust that people are working, despite the fact that 20 months in, we have been shown to have increased levels of productivity, to be able to effectively do our work from home, that there's a level of mistrust there. And I suppose I don't see it as my job to educate people as to why they shouldn't be trusting their teams. I think it's really important to have that trust. And I would question, if you don't trust your teams to do the work, then why did you hire them in the first place? I suppose is one thing that I would say. One thing worth mentioning as well is I did some research earlier in the year, and one of the key insights to come out from that research was this idea of sharing only positive news stories. And that was seen as a negative. So it's about being transparent, sharing what you know, sharing what you don't know, but not trying to put a positive spin on absolutely everything, telling it like it is, but in a compassionate and an empathetic way. So not just telling only these are the positive news stories that are happening, but actually trying to understand what's going on beneath that as well. I spoke on the podcast about some of the digital tools that we can use. I spoke about some of the pros and cons for for the hybrid and remote working, and also the impact that it could potentially have on inclusion and equity in the workplace. Also some tips around recognition and career development, and my own thoughts as to whether or not it will last and the impact that it will have as well. So if you haven't checked out the full episode of the podcast, like I said, the link is in the comments below, and I would love to know what you think of that. Thank you very much for tuning in live today or for catching the replay. I would love to know what you're thinking as well. Thank you.